So obviously, so lots of things taking place today. First and foremost, I want to thank Paul Maurice for his his many years of service with this club. Um, he came in at a time when this organization needed to make a change, needed to do things a different way, and bring some different philosophies to to the room and to the team. Paul and I have gone through a lot of things. One thing I definitely respect, when I came to him after the Anaheim series and said that we need to get younger as a team in order to to take the next steps. A lot of veteran coaches would have pushed back on that and said, no, I don't want to do that. But he embraced that, and we did. We went younger. We drafted and started implementing some of the younger players, into the group, and got us to the point where we're at today. A lot of the conversations that Paul and I have had over the last weeks, months, what weeks really is just getting it to that next level, and what it's going to take, and can we get there, and you're limited in a lot of things that you can do in this game, and so again, as we continue to talk, I think that in his mind, he felt that he certainly wasn't going to be able to to get us to that next level.
And was this a situation, sometimes when you hear someone resigned, it's, well, they resigned so they wouldn't get fired. Were you going to fire Paul Maurice?
Again, was I going to, obviously, again, we have a good relationship. Paul and I went back, and if you could have sat in some of our rooms where we negotiated his contracts and stuff like that, a lot of times we talked about, he said, just give me 1-year deals. He said, because, I'm at the point in time in my career where, being happy in life and being happy in my job and doing what I'm doing, he says, maybe you should just give me 1-year deals. And I said, well, I can't, because every year I keep giving you a 1-year deal, then the media is going to keep asking me, when are you going to extend them? I said, so anyway, those are the kind of conversations that we had, but it became clear, and certainly in these last couple of days here with our conversations, that, I think he definitely felt that he couldn't push the buttons, and we came to an agreement.
Was there a night, Kevin, when you felt like the club was, was there a point where you just felt we're just not underperforming?
No, so even in the real disappointing losses, I thought we worked, and a lot of times you hear the terms, and we've talked to you guys and say, well, he lost the room and stuff like that. I really didn't think that the guys ever stopped working. Did they? And I don't think they stopped listening. Did they stop hearing? I think, and that's, then it's semantics, but I think there is a different thing, because there's a lot of guys in that room that, certainly it's going to be an adjustment for them, but I think that adjustment is going to be good. I met with the team after Paul did and talked with them, and this is a good group. They like each other, they care for each other in that room. And I think they're a good hockey team. And, I said, I don't like waking up in the morning looking at NHL.com and seeing where we're at. And I said, I don't think you guys do either. But there's truly only, there's only the group assembled right there in front of me when I was speaking. And as I said to them, you guys are the only ones that can do this. I said, the coach and that's fine, but you guys play the game. You have to hold yourselves accountable. You have to make sure that, we're not sitting here at the end of the year and year-end exit meetings saying, oh man, this could have been, or should have been. So, again, a new voice, and I think a good voice. I think I'm really excited actually for Dave Lowry. I've seen Dave, operate here now for a couple of years. But this is an experienced hockey man. He's played over 1,000 games. He's coached at a lot of different levels. He's been assistant coach under many different coaches. He's a guy that obviously has learned some things at the feet of Paul Maurice. But when I talked to him late last night about this opportunity, you could see the gears and the wheels turning right away. And even in my subsequent conversations, he's got some different things he wants to do, like, you know, just even in the meeting side of things and all the different things. So he's, you know, he's certainly, you know, taken that next step, and I'm excited for him, and I think that the guys, you know, are excited for him too.
What are some of those different?
Whoa, one at a time.
What are some of those different things? Can you allude? Can you share some of those different things that Dave will do?
Well, you know, again, I don't know exactly from a technical standpoint yet. We didn't get too much into that, but just, you know, just in operating around the room, you know, like there's going to be things that Dave is going to do different, and sometimes getting uncomfortable, you know, in a player's, you know, routine or life. You know, that's good. I think the players need to get a little uncomfortable here right now because we're not in a comfortable situation. We're you know, this team should be better, and that's, you know, again, that's a simple fact.
Kevin, you said that this team should be better in this moment. Do you look back at some of the years that Paul has been here and feel like, or did you feel like at the time that he wasn't in years past getting the team to a place where you thought it should be?
You know, again, I think that you know, every team takes on its own life, and there's lots of different times where you're excited and you're disappointed. You know, I talked to Paul in the summertime. You know, there was a massive level of disappointment last year. You know, at the end of the Montreal series. Because of the great job that we did against the Edmonton Oilers. So the massive high to the massive low, and so we had a lot of conversations about you know, where he was at in his career, where he was at in his life, where he was at in the game. You know, we talked about, you know, what this team, you know, needed, you know, from a player standpoint. Fortunately, we felt that we got what we needed. But again, I think, you know, Paul's obviously a very honest in his assessment. He just started to lose that fire, and you know, again, in our conversations, you know, some very candid ones, that you know, between him and I, and we've learned how to be candid with each other. We didn't have to, you know, be all sunset and, you know, roses all the time when we talked. You know, it was clear to him that, you know, the decision that he made.
What can you tell us about the timeline for the coaching search? I mean, obviously it sounds like
Well,
Dave
you know,
is part of
so I talked to Dave. Dave's going to be the interim coach for the rest of the year here, and we're, you know, again, I think that the players deserve that continuity, and they know that, you know, this is that group of people that I talked to in the room today. That's the group that needs to get it done, and then, you know, we'll go from there. And it very well could be Dave Lowry, you know. So again, he's part of that mix in the future. So we're going to deal with the present right now. I don't want to sit here and you know, speculate as to, you know, how things are going to play out, because I do think that there's an opportunity for this team to continue to get better.
You touched on youth earlier. Do you think you could use an injection of youth? I know you'll get Gustafson today, but are there other people in the organization?
You know, possibly. You know, again, you know, the way this team, you know, is built is we're right at the cap. And there's 16 teams, or I shouldn't actually use the actual term. There's almost half of the teams, I think, in the league are in LTI. So trying to make changes in this environment is difficult. It's a money in, money out type of situation. But you know, again, we have some good young prospects that you know, may or may not get a look. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're changing, you know, the roster or anything like that. Dave and I haven't had a chance to sit down and really talk about that. You know, I told him to put all his focus into you know, the game here against Washington tonight, and then, you know, we'll have a chance to you know, to elaborate as we go.
Why not look for a new experienced voice, especially when you see what it's done for Vancouver?
Well, I think we did. I think this is an experienced voice. I think you know, there's a lot of opportunity here with a person that's going to try and prove themselves as well. I think that you know, this game isn't always just about going get the most experienced you know, person. I said you know, when we talked about it, you know, that we have experienced people here right now, and I think there's a real respect factor, you know, with that group and with Dave. I see him, like I say, I see him walk around the room. I see the relationships that he's you know, built, and I think he's earned this opportunity within our organization.
On the topic of youth, there's one specific example, but last year when you spoke about Ville Heinola, he gets called up, spends a month, doesn't play. Is that a sign that perhaps you and Paul didn't see eye to eye on that injection of youth?
No, not at all. You know, again, I think it goes back to, you know, just the different opportunities. Last year's COVID and the taxi squads and that, and, you know, I'm knocking on wood real hard because I don't know what the new rules are going to be here, you know, moving forward. But taxi squads were a real difficult thing to manage because, you know, last year when you couldn't fly players around commercially, you had to make decisions on calling a player up when you go on a road to make sure that you had that player available. So it's actually the opposite. It was always Ville Heinola to be there because that's who we wanted to have available to us, you know, if we needed it. And in a lot of ways, you know, it hurt. But, you know, at the beginning, everyone was like, I want to be on the taxi squad. I want to be on the taxi squad. By the end of it, they were like, I want to be off the taxi squad. I want to be off the taxi squad because, you know, again, and if we get put into that situation again, we're going to have to manage it, you know, accordingly. We live in unprecedented times right now, and we certainly did last year, and we all hope that we'd be out of it this year. But you know, it's scary right now to pick up the phone and take a look at, you know, and see what's happening, you know, with other teams. And you know, we saw it the other day. We had you know, a player test positive with the Moose, and you know, we wanted Gus here a couple of days ago, but we couldn't, you know, and we couldn't jeopardize it. So it's not just as simple as saying, you know, put him in the lineup. There's lots of things, you know, that go into it, but you know, again, we've got good young players there. It's not just Ville Heinola. You know, it was Gus, and it is Perfetti when he's back, and you know, Dylan Sandberg. You know, he gets hurt first day of training camp, and this was a guy that, you know, if you look at the coaches board, was penciled in so many exhibition games to, you know, to give him that chance. Last year he turns pro in the worst possible time ever. So the good thing is we're talking about, you know, some good young players, and I talked to different, you know, people around the league, and you know, when they're asking or talking about your players, that's a good thing. When they're not, you know, then you kind of wonder if you know, what you have.
Do you envision Paul being part of the organization or moving forward in some capacity?
We haven't talked about that. You know, honestly, you know, Paul is. You know, he again, he made a big, you know, we made a big decision. He made a big decision. We accepted it, and we haven't had any of those conversations yet.
Did you see this coming with the same clarity that, say, nearly 8 years ago when you had to make a similar decision like this?
No, when I made that decision, you know, this team was kind of going off the rails. When I made the decision, or I didn't make, you know, when we talked about this decision here over the last, you know, couple of days, this team needs a boost, and this team needs to be pushed. And Paul, you know, in our conversations, you know, we talked about just don't know that he's going to be the right guy to push it forward.
So based on that, Kevin, just to double back to what I originally asked, this was Paul's decision to resign, but was it also a decision that you had input into in terms of, if Paul hadn't made this decision, it may have forced other things to happen?
Yeah, I you know, again, I think this group, you know, can, you know, it could wake up on its own, but, you know, I guess how long do you do that? And those are the questions again. So, you know, like day after a game, you know, win or loss, you know, Paul and I generally have a real good heart-to-heart, you know, and talk about a lot of different things. And, you know, when you start talking about the same things, you know, again, if you're both honest and looking at each other, you know, you kind of come to the same conclusion. And again, it goes back to, I think, the unique situation where Paul and I had with respect to his contracts and negotiating his contracts, and you know, and you know, moving forward, you know, he's going to be, you know, well taken care of still.
Did you see him losing his fire gradually? Is that thing you talked about that as well? Or?
Well, I saw the fire going in a lot of different directions, you know, and that's not a good thing. You know, like when your fire's kind of burning in the wrong kind of place, that's when you know, like, you know, again, he never cheated the game. He never, you know, there was, you know, never the work ethic, never the preparation, never those kind of things. But when the fire's going in the wrong direction, and, you know, that's not making, you know, anybody happy, then that's probably not the right thing. Well, you get angry, you know, you get upset. You take it, you know, upon yourself. You kind of wear the anger a little, little too long, or a little, you wear the anguish of the losses a little too long. That's the thing. It's never that, you've lost it, but, it maybe just doesn't get the same results and drags you down a little more.
You mentioned that Jamie's back today, which is obviously great for him and the organization. Did that factor into the timing of all this as well?
It's fortuitous, I guess, and thankfully he's here, because obviously, him and his wife are dealing with a much greater, picture. So we're excited. There's lots of hugs and that, in there. We'll take a look and see if maybe there's another opportunity to add, someone to the group here. We'll see how that goes. Dave and I floated the idea out, briefly to him last night, but we haven't really had a chance to, to dive into that. But, again, there's a lot of experience in that room, and again, I from the moment that, I left Dave and to seeing him here this morning, he's a different person already, with respect to, what's in store.
Kevin, do you think, like, you made some moves, obviously, this summer to address needs that people have talked about that you needed to make. Then Paul has taken on his shoulders the last few losses. He needed to prepare his club. Clearly, with this move and what you alluded to before, I mean, is the message to the players now, there's no more excuses? Like,
I did talk to them, and like I said, I like this group. I think it's a great group, and they, they like each other, which I think you have to have, in the beginning. But again, I challenge them to hold each other accountable. I challenge them to hold themselves accountable, and again, we can be fine with where we're at, or we can, get to where we think we all should be. But it's got to be done a certain way, and it's going to be done with a different voice. I think, when Paul and I talked, it's a good day for the Jets here right now, because, I think, on the Paul Maurice side, he's comfortable where he's at. But I think for the Jets, we have an opportunity here now to, to move forward with a new voice.
What are your expectations? Where do you set that bar now for this team?
Hey, again, I think this team can take itself to wherever it wants to go, because it can be that good. So I think, it definitely should be a playoff team, but this is a tough league. Like, sitting here telling you where it should be or shouldn't be, I can have all that in front of me. But as you guys see, like, you got to go out there, you got to do it. Yeah, there's going to be bounces. Yeah, there's going to be COVID. Yeah, and we're going to have to embrace all those challenges. But I think this team can challenge to be one of the top teams, or it can be a team that misses the playoffs if they don't figure it out. And we've got games in front of us right now, but that's why that's why they play the game. They're professional athletes, and it's important that they understand that the time is now.
Kevin, you said that all will be taken, or he'll be well taken care of going forward. What does that mean?
We've obviously he's walking away, but there's we have an agreement as far as contractually from that standpoint. So again, this organization is taking good care of its people.
Kevin, can you maybe just before you go, just the legacy of Paul Maurice, who was almost 8 years, through the efforts of everybody, this team's a lot better than when he arrived here. But just in a couple of years from now, what do you think your and our memory should be of Paul Maurice?
Well, again, I think it is that. I think it's, I think you guys are going to miss having him in the press conferences. I think you guys, didn't appreciate how good you had, from an orator standpoint, and he's a fun guy to talk to and that. So, but again, he built relationships. He people, I know people are real critical, of him and our organization, saying he didn't play the young guys. But if you go back, he played every single young guy that we asked him, that was ready to play, and played them to the point where, Kyle Connor is who he is, Nikolai Ehlers is who he is. Mark Scheifele was a young guy who was, Josh Morrissey was a young player. So I think those are the things that, the core of this team was built, through the draft and from developing, and that development continued in the National Hockey League as well.